You're watching The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God. We are The Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
Yes, sir.
Pastor T.D. Jakes.
Bishop T.D. Jakes.
Bishop
Lord
T.D.
have
Jakes.
mercy. You can tell we ain't been to church in a while.
Oh, my goodness.
Could you explain to him the difference between a pastor and a bishop?
Yeah, please do.
Just call me by my name. It's all
T.D.
good.
Jakes.
That works.
There
That
you
works.
go. Well, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
You got a new book out called Soar.
Yes, sir.
This book is very timely because it's about entrepreneurship, which leads to economic empowerment. You say that you don't have to be an entrepreneur to think like one and take flight with your dreams. Explain that more for those who haven't read it.
I really wrote the book because I really wanted to talk to people who are trying to launch their careers, get their dreams up, accomplish their goals. Most people who have accomplished something never take the time to teach other people how they did it. There are some basic principles that go across the board regardless of what type of business you're trying to build or what type of career or brand you want. And I wrote the book Soar to show you how to build from the ground up. If you don't have all the capital and you don't have all the support, that still doesn't mean you can't fly.
Now, what's interesting about you is that both of your parents were entrepreneurs. And I know I was actually just talking to some kids yesterday that are thinking about getting into being an entrepreneur and trying to figure out those steps. And I was saying my parents never really instilled that in me. And so fortunately for you, you were kind of raised with that mindset, and for your brothers and sisters.
It makes a big difference if you come up in an environment where people are talking business all the time. And I mean, this was low-impact business. My father started a business with a mop and a bucket. That's it. And ended up with 52 employees and 10 trucks back in the 60s. But I grew up in the house of good days and bad days. I know what it's like when it's going good and then it's going bad. Most people get out of business because they hit a bad spot, but it's like turbulence on a plane. If you just stay seated, everything's going to be all right. Things land on their feet again, and you have to withstand those struggles, those hard times, and you have to be on top of your business. You have to focus. You have to do what you have to do. In the book was written based on the Wright Brothers because these guys built a airplane that nobody had ever heard, didn't even know what to call it,
Right.
and they built it in a bicycle shop. And I wrote it to say you don't have to have everything that you need to build your dream. Take what you got, use what you got, start where you are, and build from there. And it's amazing what you can accomplish with your life.
Now, let's go back a little bit, if y'all don't mind. Let's start. How did you get into the church? What got you in the church so heavy?
It's kind of hard to remember a time that I wasn't. I grew up in that environment. I grew up around it, so I was exposed to it. So on one hand, I grew up playing the piano in the church. On the other hand, I ended up helping my father run a buffer at night. So I had a work ethic and a spiritual life almost all of my life, and it's always been a part of my life.
You ain't never played no sports? You got like a little nose guard build.
I know, but
so big.
it's fake news, bro. It's fake news. I inherited these shoulders. I didn't earn them. My daddy gave me these. Thank you, Daddy. But the reality is I didn't do that. I really grew up in that kind of environment. And that's not to say I was any goody two-shoes. Don't think that by any stretch of the imagination. But I did grow up in that environment where there was faith on one hand, there was work on the other. And that's kind of who I became.
What made you take it so serious? Because, every black family, most black families put their children in church, and they get to a certain age and then they just kind of wheezle out.
Yeah, everybody not ordained.
Yeah, not everybody stays for the long.
That's a great question. Nobody ever asked me that. That's amazing. Nobody ever asked me. I think what made me take it so seriously is my father got sick when I was 10. I grew up in a house with dialysis. I grew up in a house where we were juggling between life and death on a daily basis. Dialysis wasn't nearly as advanced as it is today.
Right.
He died when I was 16. And I think it was a choice between blowing my brains out and coming to God. And that was kind of where my head was at that time, in a really, really bad spot. And I knew that there was something missing out of my life as it related to fathering that I desperately needed. And I was trying to fill that hole in my life. And I think that has all the world to do with how I became who I am.
You didn't feel like you had to be the man of the house for like your mom? At the time?
I'm the baby.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm the baby. I don't look like it now. But I was the youngest of my siblings. I was the youngest. My brother is 7 years older than me. My sister's 5.5 years older than me. And it had just so zonked us, the pain and the roller coaster ride of being up and down and up and down. I was trying to find something stable in the midst of a chaotic life.
And it's interesting because you do talk about your father with his business. Even though he did grow his business to have 52 employees, you always felt like he could have really taken it to the next level if he would have had that mindset?
Yeah, well, the thing I noticed about my dad was hard to describe because he did everything. He sold fish. He did everything imaginable. He was like the ultimate hustler.
Right.
And then he got this business going and he was doing it good. But he brought a hustling attitude into a business opportunity. And I noticed something that he was so busy doing it, he didn't have time to grow it. And so in the book, I talk about the danger of keeping your hands on things so long that it deteriorates from what it could have been, because you can hire somebody to do it, but you can't hire anybody to think it. You have to be able to market it. You have to be able to manage it. It's just because you have a talent doesn't mean you need to go into business doing that thing, because business is not about doing it. It's about thinking it.
You said your father had that mindset back then, and that's when oppression was real.
Absolutely.
Nowadays, we have a lot more freedoms, but you have some people like, I can't do it because the white man won't allow me to. I wonder what gave him that mindset back then.
Well, we had no choice. We had no choice. It was build or die. There was nobody to fall back on. Our parents had nothing to fall back on. It was a different day and time altogether. And my father was trying to make it. I mean, he'd come up from Mississippi. My mother was from Alabama. He had an opportunity to make it in West Virginia, and he went after it hard. You'd be surprised how hard you hit when you have nothing to fall back on.
Right. They say when your back is against the wall, that's when you fight the hardest.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes some of our blessings is also our curse, because we have a little bit better situation. You can go home and stay with mama. That wasn't an option at the time. So when you walked out of that door, you had to make it happen. You really had to make it happen.
How did you have the mindset to be in the church and to have all these other businesses that you do? Because I'm sure the congregation looks at you and, it's always, they're looking at you and say, well, where's he getting that money from? How's he making this? How is that? Like, it's almost ridicule of what they do. So how did you have that mind frame to continue to go and still do those businesses?
The funny thing about that is I had my business before I had my church. TD Jakes Enterprises existed before I had the Potter's House. So the church didn't have to get used to it. I came with it. Like Marvin Winans can sing, and he brings a gift in the presence of also being a preacher. All you can give is who you are. It's not because I'm a preacher that I'm successful. I'm successful if I didn't preach. I've done enough movies, I've done enough films that if I didn't preach at all, which puts me in a position where I don't have to do it for the money. I can do it because I love it. So being bivocational is a blessing. I mean, Jesus was a carpenter. Paul was a tent maker. And I've been blessed to make films. It started out doing plays, got a door and an opportunity to do something with Sony Pictures. I wasn't going to give up the ministry because I became more successful, and I wasn't going to give up the opportunity because I was a preacher.
What do you think? What do you say to people who call guys like yourself pulpit pimps because they feel like y'all have turned church into a business?
Well, most of the guys who say that are standing outside, and it's like standing outside of your business, calling you names. People who stand outside of something never really understand it. They make assumptions about things. They make assumptions. They don't understand. And every ministry is different. I'm not vouching for everybody. We're not monolithic. We're not all alike. But in our particular case, people who know our ministry know that we rehabilitate 10,000 inmates and help them to reduce the rate of recidivism. We have a year-long program that we take them through to get them back out in life. People who know our ministry know that we were boots on the ground in Katrina. We were there when they were snatching bodies out of there. We were there for the current hurricanes that we have all the way to Puerto Rico. People who know our ministry know the work that we do all over the world, digging wells and whatnot. And then we have 300 people on staff. It's not just me. But when you come on TV, they see you.
Right.
They see you and they see money, and they don't see 300 other families who eat every day because of what we do. So if you're sitting around the barbershop and you're making assumptions have a root word.
Ass.
Bishop T.D. Jakes just said, how you going to hit from the outside of the church? You can't even get in. All right? now, you relate all entrepreneurship to flying in this book. You mentioned the Wright Brothers earlier, but why flying?
Well, because it is a bit like being suspended to start a business. You don't feel like you have anything under you. It is a scary situation. You start out on the ground, you end up in the air. And what I'm really saying about a business, the Wright brothers looked up in the air and thought the audacious thought, I belong up there, at a time when that was totally ridiculous. They built something to take them there. People who build businesses must build the business to take them toward your dream. The business is not the dream. It is the transportation to the dream. If you don't get that straight in the embryonic stages of building a business, you won't succeed. And the reason it's important that we have this conversation right now is women of color are going into business more readily than any other people group in the country. They are going into business that fast. Bad news is they're not staying in the business because they don't lack access to capital and they don't have anybody to mentor them. And what I'm saying in the book, I don't care how talented you are, how gifted you are, you're better if you have a coach.
Right. And you talk about the research of where the Wright brothers went. They said, okay, this is where the wind is going to be right for us to be able to take off. And then once you do take off, having the wind beneath you so that you can... Yeah.
That's one of my favorite points. I'm glad you brought that up. My experiences, I've done a lot of things. I've done talk shows. I've done various types of businesses. You have to, no matter how good you build whatever it is you're building, if you don't get it in the right wind at the right time, then you won't accelerate the way you need to. The Wright brothers built the first plane in Dayton, but they launched it in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. And the main reason they went to Kitty Hawk is because the wind is right. And in the book, I use that as a metaphor to say you might be doing the right thing in the wrong place or at the wrong time. If you get the right winds up under you, you become a lot more successful. Colonel Sanders built his business at a time that women had gone to work and families were used to home-cooked meals. The timing was right. The wind was right. And in spite of the fact that he was 60-some years old, he launched a business that outlived him, outgrew him, and became a brand that's still here today.
And you can talk about Woman Thou Art Loosed and how you put that book out. And it's true, right? Today, ebooks are what the thing is. But you had a whole marketing campaign, and that's when we used to get our paperbacks and read that, and it actually worked back then. Yeah, it worked. But today,
it wouldn't work right now.
Yeah, you said e-commerce puts the E in easy, you said.
yeah. It changed the whole game. But at the time, my wife and I took all the money we had in our life savings, self-published our own book. No publisher would publish it. The book was called Woman Thou Art Loose. We took the money we were going to buy a house with, put it into the book, sold out of 5,000 copies in 2 weeks, sold out again in another 2 weeks. That book went on to sell over 5 million copies.
Wow. Now, you spoke about the wind being right, but you also talk in the book about you can't wait for the perfect opportunity or the perfect condition.
Yeah, by that, you have to use what you got. You have to use what you got. And the Wright brothers used what they had. They had inadequate equipment. They had no funding. They had very little support, and they didn't even have an education in the area that they needed an education to be successful. In spite of those variables, they became successful. So that's what I mean when I talk about not having the adequate things that you need in place. That's important. John Maxwell says that if you know how to do something, you will always have a job. But if you know why they do it, they will always work for you.
And money is a motivation, too. We discussed that because a lot of people who are motivated to be successful think finance is what defines success. But that can't be the only thing that you're aiming for.
No, it doesn't work. In fact, stats say that people who go into business because they need money are more apt to go out of business than anybody else. The success rate is deplorable. However, people who start a business to meet other people's needs are much more successful. You don't have to market it as hard. You don't have to talk me into supplying something that I have a need for. So it's really about purpose-driven, not profit-driven. If you are purpose-driven, the profits will follow you. If you're profit-driven, you're always going to be hustling.
What was your business before the church?
I've always been involved in the church, but I've done managed clothing. I was a buyer for a clothing store for men's fashion. I worked for Union Carbide, processing gases and acetylenes and oxygens for a number of years. I've done just about everything.
So Avon products?
Yeah, for my mother when I was a little boy. My mother was an Avon lady. I was a little boy helping her. So I was hustling all of my life. All of my life, I've always been doing something productive. I was actually a short order cook and later a chef for a restaurant. So I've done just a little bit of everything.
You look like a chef, though. I ain't gonna lie.
I can throw down, brother. I can throw down. I can hurt you real bad. You won't be able to wear nothing you got.
Now, a lot of people always talk about, I have money or I have an idea. I want to start a business. What should I do? And there's a lot of listeners that have money. They hit me and you all the time about what should I do? What would you tell somebody that wants to create a business or start a business that have no idea, don't know where to start, or just clueless?
Study everything you can about the business. Get every kind of magazine. Get around anybody who's doing what you want to do, any kind of way before you start the business, not after, before you start. Because the fact that you want to start a business in an area, every business has a culture, unspoken rules. And so in order to really find out how to do that, you have to get around people who are doing that, Don't be afraid to enter in at ground level zero to get the information. Once you've gathered all the information, the second step, put your team together. You can't do it without the right team. It's very important that you get the right team. If you're going to build a team, don't build a team, which is a mistake most people make, associating with people who do what you do. Because if you surround yourself with people who do what you do, they're going to compete with you. You want people who are good at what you're not good at so they complete you. Once you have your team together, and they should be completing you in that they accessorize your limitations. So you have to be good enough at what you do to know what you're not good at. Most people are too egotistical to admit that they're not good at anything, so they don't build the right team because you want to be the master of everything. Right. You want to come up with the concept, develop the concept, share it with people, get a non-disclosure agreement before you do so, put together your team, and from your team, you launch your dream.
Another good piece of advice you give in the book, Soar, is waiting patience, and wanting it now. And you touch on how these millennials don't really realize success is a process. It
is definitely a process. And I do training camps for millennials. I'm passionate about them. I love them. When I'm standing over in the corner looking at me, who is my son. So when I see millennials, I see my sons. I want them to win. But I also want them to understand the amount of people who are going to put something on YouTube and make them rich is minuscule. And so you can't wait 30 years to luck up on something because you saw a few people get in that door. You missed a huge opportunity. Number two, if you saw somebody older than you that you admired and you saw them doing something that you want to do, you didn't see the struggle they went through before they got to the success. We tend to advertise our success, but not our struggle. So millennials some of them have bought into the notion, that's easy, I can do that. Many, many times, the worst thing anybody, any age can do is to underestimate your opponent. And when you get into business, and when you get into life, and when you get into marriage, or when you get into church, or when you get into a club, or when you get into anything, you have an opponent to fight. Never underestimate your opponent.
One thing I always hear from people is they feel kind of stuck. Like they have bills to pay, they have children to take care of, they have all kinds of responsibilities, but they have these dreams that they want to follow that they're not necessarily following now. They don't have the money to do it. And that's one of the main things I hear. How can I pursue what I'm passionate about when I have these responsibilities at home that I need to take care of?
There are a lot of things you can do, and I really relate to that. You know, I know what it is to have my lights off. I know what it is to have my water off. I have my car repossessed. I know what it is to really be up against it. People who meet me now have no clue of the 20, 30 years that came before it.
They didn't see the process.
They did not see the process, and they underestimate who I am. The reality is steady money for steady bills. You need a job for steady bills. You need steady income. You don't need gigs for steady bills because gigs come and go. Right. You need steady money for steady bills. Extra money, hobby money, you want to all invest in the business. So even though it's a for-profit business, it's not for profit at first. That means everything you're making off of that, you want to throw that over back into the business because one day you're going to walk up to an investor and you're going to pitch the deal to him. And the first thing he or she is going to ask you is, how much do you have in it? Anytime you're asking other people to invest in something that you have not fully invested in, that's a real turnoff to real investors.
Now, what about the people who come to you, Bishop? Taylor, the Bishop from Water, please. What about the people who come to you and say, Bishop, I've been praying, and I've been praying for a blessing, and I've been praying for something to break through. I've been praying for this job, but nothing's falling through. What do you say to those people?
That's really my audience. That's really my audience, and that's primarily why I wrote the book, because faith without works is dead.
Yes, sir.
And I spent a lot of times talking about faith. I wrote this book because now I want to talk about work. Because if you have all of that faith, you're asking God to do stuff that you got to do. You know, and if you don't do what you have to do, he can't do what he's going to do. And somebody's going to say, well, how can you say God can't? The Bible said that whatsoever he doeth, whatsoever you do, God will prosper. If you don't do anything, he doesn't have anything to prosper. And so I'm not one of these guys, you know, it's magic, it's quick, it's easy, give an offering, spin around, shout 3 times, and you got it. It's not like that. Right. If that would have worked, I would have done it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work that goes into doing anything that becomes successful, and anybody who stands outside of it and says that it's a scam or it's a game They only do that because they don't understand the work ethic that it takes to build buildings, hire people, do what you do. There's a lot of work in being successful in any industry. It doesn't matter what it is.
Now, also, you talk about praying, and when we had these catastrophes, and you say pray for Houston or pray for Vegas, a lot of times under the comments, you'll see people that say, why would I pray to the same person that is destroying us or hurting us or causing these hurricanes or causing these shootings? What do you say to some of those people that don't believe?
Well, first of all, thankfully we live in a country that you can believe whatever you want to believe without affecting the way I believe. I am resolute in the fact that God is not nature. Yes, he could control nature. He could let us live forever, but God is not nature. He stands outside of nature. And when I say pray for Houston or pray for Florida or pray for so-and-so, I have the same mindset that I do about this book. We're going to pray on one hand. We're going to load up them trucks and get some help down there on the other.
Damn right.
We need to do both. Amen. So when you start talking about prayer, I believe in prayer, but I also believe in work. As to trying to explain God, that's not my job.
Well, people forget Satan got a kingdom too. Like these people aren't submitting their will to God, they're submitting their will to the
Satan
devil.
has a kingdom. There's that role to play in it. But here's the reality. If my grandmama's up on the roof, I don't have time to discern whether this is God or the devil. I want to get her off of the roof.
Damn right.
You understand what I'm saying? Just straightforward and simple. Yet I believe in prayer. I believe in the power of prayer. But if I'm hanging on the roof, I appreciate your prayer, but would you hand me a rope? I'm just being real. Pray while you throw me the rope, okay? I'm a very practical guy. I want you to pray, but I want you to throw a brother a rope, and a good heavy rope because I'm a pretty big guy, okay? So that my motto and my frame set in ministry is we pray with one hand, we work with the other. We have an organization called Mega Care that has been renowned around the world for its ability to be first responders in times of crisis. So just because you see a logo that says pray doesn't mean that there's not activity going on. Sometimes that activity is going on without anything being said, and other times we're very public about it. But again, faith without works is dead.
And Soar, you got some lines I love. You say you have to look ahead to your ultimate destination with one eye and keep the other focused on your next step. And remember that graduation is rooted in the word gradual. Can you explain that a little?
The thing that gets me about that is that so many people have respect for the future and no respect for the present. Right. They've got their eye on the prize, but they don't have their eyes on the next step. If you don't honor the next step, you won't make it to the prize. And this is important for people to understand. They are so excited about where they're going that they don't have respect for where they are. If you don't have respect for where you are, you don't get to where you're going. Right. And that's something we don't tell people about. We tell them, believe in your dream, envision where you're going. Get around people who are doing what you're doing. All that's good, but only with one eye. Because if you don't respect where you are, you won't live to play on the field of where you want to go.
And that's also part of your start small to finish big. We dream big, but you do have to take those smaller steps. Don't do too much all at once in the beginning, and then you don't ever make it to where you were going.
Absolutely. I had 7 members in a storefront church in the hills of West Virginia preaching with my lights off long before I had a television camera. 20 years later, I popped up on TV, and people said, I've been following you all your life. No, you haven't. You've been following me since you turned on your TV. You missed the 20 years that preceded it. You missed the process of my little boy selling tapes in the back and us putting our grocery money into the church to build it to where it was. You missed the 7 members and the 10 years that I never had over 100 members. In 10 years and never stopped preaching. Now we talk about 30,000 members. But I am so grateful for the time that preceded it, because had I not dealt with the time that preceded it, I wouldn't be strong enough to handle the pressure of where I am now.
Right.
It's a foundation. And you have to build foundation gradually. And that's exactly what I'm saying. If you don't build it yourself, you can't run it yourself. If you build it yourself, you're tough enough to handle it. You know where the bricks are. You know where the problems are. You understand your brand better than anybody else because you built it yourself.
Now, it's people who are going to read Soar and they're going to be like, I want to be an entrepreneur. How, I want to quit my job. How do you know when to leave a certain job that doesn't fulfill you and learning to head in the direction that God maybe wants you in?
Common sense goes a long ways in the process of understanding the material that you're exposed to. There are people who leap off a job and land on a career and it explodes, but more times than not, it's a gradual process. You know, if you're out there in the ocean, you're holding onto a raft, and I reach out my hand to get you, you're not going to grab my hand all at once. You're going to grab my hand gradually as you let go of the raft, because you can't afford to let go of both things at the same time. And that same thing true with most people in a job. There are some rare cases that you have enough funding behind you, you've built enough team behind you that you can walk straight away into your dream, but never step off of something that's substantive for nothing but hope.
That's what I tell these kids too. In the pursuit of your dreams, deal with your reality, man.
Absolutely. It's critical. And the reason that I think it's important, we as a people can't lose another fight. We cannot lose another fight. We cannot afford to be fighting with each other, castigating, destroying each other. We have so many enemies coming against us like I have not seen since I was a child. This community has to learn how to rally. We have to learn how to rally. We have to get away from destroying each other and being cannibals, eating each other, because we already got people hunting us. And if we don't use all of our information to come together, everything you know and everything I know and everything Sean Combs knows and everything LL Cool J knows and everything President Obama knows, we need everybody. Because if we don't, we're not going to survive.
That's a great point you bring up. I often wonder, what role does the church play in this current climate that we're in right now?
The church plays and can play a tremendous role. But when you say the church, is like saying hip hop. It's not all monolithic. It's not all the same. There is no headquarters that controls the church. Okay, so where do we send the letter to the church? The church is made of the people. So we are the church, okay? And the church is us. And you have to understand that. And the church has a unique role. Many of them are playing it in different ways. In the civil rights movement, the church was the press. It was where we disseminated information. It was where we let people know where the march was going to be. It was where you galvanized support. You put your little nickels in. We fought together. It was the first schools we had when we weren't allowed in public school and we weren't taught how to read. So the church has to be ambidextrous enough to morph into what the times need. We don't necessarily need to be a school right now. We don't necessarily need to be the press right now. We don't necessarily need to do what we did in the 60s. We got congressmen and senators and legislation and things we didn't have back then, but we still have a significant role to be. And that role depends on whether the church is in South Chicago or Beverly Hills. They're not the same thing. It depends on who the congregation is. The church should meet the needs first of its parishioners. You have a responsibility to make sure the people who gave the money got something back. You cannot reach to the community and not take care of the people who gave the resources, because you're accountable to those people. Once you have taken care of their needs, their facilities, their funerals, their weddings, their emergencies, their crises, being their facility, buildings big enough to handle them, then you reach to the community. I think that one of the greatest things that the church can be right now is a voice for those who cannot be heard, to use our platform to speak out when there's time to speak to an issue. Whether speaking out is in a march or it's in an op-ed letter like I recently wrote, or whether it's going to Washington or speaking in Washington, I think that's a tremendous role to play.
But do you think the church is too trendy? And the reason I say that is it just feels like, when you're a kid, everybody watches Michael Jordan, everybody wanted to be a basketball player. Then, you see LL Cool J and Run DMC, everybody wanted to be a rapper. Now, I see with the church, I see a lot more ministers and pastors, and for some of it, for me, I see it online a lot on YouTube and all these other channels. It doesn't seem real. It seems like they're doing it for an opportunity, which makes people not necessarily believe.
It's an
see it too. That's you see it too.
Yeah. I will say that I see it more than I used to, and I think it is because people see the church as an opportunity to get up on their feet, and they go into ministry for wrong reasons.
That's money.
Yeah. and let me tell you something. You talked about fake news.
Yes, sir.
It's not like that. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't happen like that. And so you get all of these jacklegs who see it as a gig and they don't have a real call on their life. And then we take punishment for people who are not really committed to the cause. On the other hand, every business has fake people.
Mm-hmm.
Every business. I mean, secular people are always quick to judge the church about being phony. Strippers are phony. Nightclubs are phony. Hip-hop is phony. Everything is phony.
Everybody got somebody doing it for the wrong reason.
Everybody got somebody got game. So don't act like that's just the church. And it's not everybody, but yes, we have people who need to do better. And we have people who don't even need to be up there, who don't even know what they're talking about at all. That's a reality. But in this country, you have the freedom to be able to explore that. And you have the wisdom as a parishioner to decide, hey, that don't suit me. I'm not going to hate on you because you get blessed there. But as for me, I respond better to this voice over here. It reaches me in a way that voice over there, selection. Welcome to America. You can go to the church of your choice. You cannot lump us all in one bag and say they are all like that. Not and be black and brown, because you have been the victim of prejudice and discrimination. Why would you say all of anybody are anything?
Right. Now, I love what you just said, but what is a jackleg, sir? What is it?
A jackleg. It's an old statement. Because you're too young to know what it means. A jackleg.
I might want to use that later.
A jackleg is an old man's way of saying you're ratchet.
Oh, okay, got you.
It was the way we said you were ratchet.
Got you.
Now I feel real old.
Okay,
but,
all right, got you.
A jackleg.
What are your personal rules as far as disconnecting from everything else, like social media, what's going on in the news, obviously to spend some time, some good quality family time, and just to get your mind right?
It's important. I don't do it enough. I spend a lot of time with my hand on the pulse beat of what's going on around me, because I have to be able to talk in atmospheres like this. I just got off of CNN with Don Lemon last night. I have to know what's going on, but I also need to detox.
Yes, sir.
It's probably the thing I'm the worst at, but it is the most important thing to do. My children are grown, so I don't have that issue anymore. But at one time it was about getting quality time with them, which was very important. But I still have the issue of getting quality time with me and my wife and just chilling out and just getting my head straight. I'm learning the value of that. I'm working on that every day. I am a workaholic by nature.
I was going to say, because you have this multimedia empire.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's hard to find that balance between family and work.
Let me tell you what gives an empire the greatest amount of rest is good staff. You cannot rest. I don't care whether you go to Hawaii or Tahiti. If you don't have competent people in place, you're going to bring those problems with you. You can only rest to the degree of the support you have. The location doesn't matter at all. And so if you build anything, here's an easy example. It's like a mother who's got kids. I don't care where you take her in the world. If the babysitter's not good, she can't rest.
Right.
It's exactly that feeling. It's exactly that feeling, because you birthed it and you love it and you want it to be well, even if it means that you don't get to rest like you need to. That's how that is.
I agree. Who does the go-to guy go to, though? Because you're the guy that everybody comes to for a word, they want prayer. Who do you go to?
I got a whole board of people.
You got Oprah.
I got all kinds. It depends on what I want.
Like when you were doing your daytime talk show, you said you went to Oprah.
I talked to her. Yeah, she knew the business really well. She told me it was a steep hill and a tough climb with 300 stations, whereas when she came out, it was 3. And we had really frank conversations about that. And I would come to her to find out information about that. I might go to a CEO to find out information about how to handle a tax situation or some other kind of problem. You don't just have one person. I have a spiritual father that loves me, helped raise me, been a major part of my life. He's not famous or anything like that. But
that's what I'm interested in. Like, who's the spiritual?
Yeah, Sherman Watkins in Columbus, Ohio, has always been. I've had one. He's not famous. Everybody famous isn't great, and everybody great isn't famous. He's my dad. He stepped in when nobody else did. He's been in my life since I was a teenager. He's 80-some years old, and as long as he's breathing, he's the rock I go to when I'm sick of everything and everybody. And I do have those moments.
Why don't we see more spiritual thought leaders like yourself or the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, like coming together, having conversations, maybe teaching people together?
Well, theologically, we would be on different pages as it relates to the theology of the Nation of Islam versus the Nation of the Church. Community issues, we would be on the same accord because we got the same community issues to fight. I don't know that we would be better together than we are separate. I think we have different callings and different stations, even where we have the same theology. Even where we have the same theology. I am not as hungry for us to get together and have conversations that's interesting. I think I am more hungry to have what I'm having right now, conversations with you. I love having conversations with you because you're next. And anything, tips, tool, hint, watch out, the bears over there that I can leave you, I love
You're teaching the next generation, basically.
Yes, sir. That's where my passion is.
Now you stress in this book that it's never too late. I don't want mixtape rappers to receive that message. I'm gonna be honest. I don't want no SoundCloud rappers to receive that message.
But it is a fact. It is never too late.
I don't know. Like it is too late.
Why,
for some
why do
people.
I see people on a walker doing hip hop? But
As hip hop grows up and gets older, people are doing things at an older age.
that is very, very true, and it will get older. And I know you don't believe it. I know the people listening don't believe it, but you will, and you are getting older. And whatever is in vogue now won't be. And you're going to be a Neanderthal, so be careful how you treat old folks because you're about to be one, okay? Quicker than you think. And the kids coming up under you are looking at you now like you're an antique. And so it happens really, really fast. One of the things I'm saying in Soar is don't waste time. I'd rather see you waste money than to waste time.
Right.
You can get some more money. I could give you some money. You could give me some money. We could hook her up. We could hook you up. You'll be all right. I can't give you not one day if you need it. I can't give you 30 seconds if you need it. So the prime commodity is your time.
Right.
And when you are young, you take it for granted because you think you're going to always have plenty of it. You might have more of it. You might not. And if you do have it, nothing says you're going to feel like, look like, move like you do right now. What you do have is this present moment.
I always say growing older is beautiful as long as you're getting better as you get older and doing, being more successful. Every year I've always done something even more groundbreaking than I thought I would do the previous year. And that's a blessing. Like when you are getting better every single year, you can't wait for the next year to see what's going to happen.
I wouldn't trade where I am to go back and be young again. I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't go back through all the things I had to go through to get to where I am right now. But I think youth has its own beauty. I think it's amazing in its own
Enjoy
way.
it.
Yes, live it, listen. I got chills. Enjoy it. But I think no matter where you are in life, you should enjoy where you are, not wish you were back where you were, because that's a theft. That's thievery. Not wish you were in the future. That's thievery. Anytime any thought drives you away from appreciating this present moment, it has to some degree robbed you.
But that's the only time you want to go back is when you're not where you want to be.
Yeah, or when you can get. There are a lot of people my age who want to go back and be young again. And they want a day where they were happier because they define happy a certain way with certain things. I have learned that every so often you have to redefine your definition of happy. Because if you don't redefine your definition of happy, you will thirst for what was and miss what is. Whether your definition of happy was somebody who isn't there anymore or something that you don't do anymore, if you don't redefine it, your heart will ache for stuff that left.
Now, I only got 2 more questions for you, Bishop. But you say in the book, you say build a relationship with your competition. Why?
Because you have to know what's going on around you. You won't know what's going on. If Blockbusters would have built a relationship with Netflix, they could have cut a deal.
That's true.
Short and simple. It's not good to be so isolated that you don't communicate. Sometimes it's better to be a smaller part of a big thing than a big part of nothing. And sometimes we isolate as a community to our own destruction. Nobody wants to work together. Everybody works in isolation of each other while other people groups are forming conglomerates and they're buying up and they're building together. We work in isolation and we live in silos. And I'm saying, if you're in the industry and I'm in the industry, yes, we benefit by knowing each other. I can pick up the phone, text you, and say, I'm getting ready to do something. I need your help. You need that kind of relationship. Don't always be so competitive that you're hating on everybody. One of the things that we had that I don't see today, we had friends. We had friends, and we still do, and we had them all of our lives. And one of the things that I don't see happening amongst young people, especially young men, you're not friends. You got to be friends. Ride or die throughout life. You have to develop friendships, and you don't learn how to develop friendships when you're raised on laptops and iPads and phones. And so people don't work like phones. They're not as predictable as phones where
Look
you hit a
somebody in
button.
the eye, talk to them.
Talk to them.
Yeah.
Communicate
And I just feel like
with them.
mentally that's really great for you also, because when you're in isolation, I think, so many people struggle from mental health disorders.
You took it out of my mouth.
Mentally, it's so important for us to have great relationships and be able to communicate with other people you can rely on, go to, talk to for advice, instead of thinking everything is just you by yourself.
Right. And here's the other problem. There are things you learn in friendship, like conflict resolution, how to talk. I don't have to shoot you because we disagree.
Right.
See, you learn how to communicate. You learn how to resolve issues. Your relationships get better because you've been through those things together. You learn how to forgive. You learn how to apologize. You learn how to get over. It's so important. It's so important. If we don't move a book, please hear what I'm telling you. You can't go through this world by yourself.
Right.
You need people in this world. Things are going to happen along the way that you can't pay for.
And I guess that's what I meant when I asked you about Minister Farrakhan, because I would love to see spiritual thought leaders like you two who have these flocks of people together.
If getting together, I don't know about him specifically, but because I don't have that kind of close relationship with him, but I could name 100 people off the top of my head of different faiths with whom I do have relationships with.
Got you.
That I would not be here today without the relationships I had. And please don't lock me up to only have relationships with preachers, because I am not just a preacher. I'm a person.
There you go.
So I have relationships with all kinds of people. I have relationships with people in hip hop. I have relationships with people in movies. I have relationships with people who are doctors. I have relationships with Democrats and Republicans. I've had relationships with the last 3 presidents. Not this current one.
What I was going to say.
Please don't waste your prayers on him. Okay?
I just haven't so far. But President Bush was my governor. Before he was the president of the United States. I've known the Clinton family for a number of years. President Obama, I did the inaugural message on the day he was inaugurated. I spoke in the White House over and over again. Relationships, period. And don't just think relationships. You see that between me and other ministers because you see me as a preacher, and you'll miss me if you only see me as a preacher. Please see me as a man.
That's real.
That's very important. I will let you down and you will lock me up if you only see me as a preacher. I was a man before I was a preacher.
Right.
I'm a person. And so if we engage as men, we can need each other and feed each other and help each other. And I can benefit from what you bring and you can benefit from what I bring. But when you see me as a preacher, it almost puts me in an area where whatever you think about preachers, I have to be. They profile me. I have to be that, because whatever you think about preachers, I inherit that. You didn't even meet me. You don't even know me. I'm a person.
Like I catch you listening to 2 Chainz and be like, Bishop, what you doing?
I'd listen to everything. I don't know what 2 Chainz is, but if it's on and it got a good beat, I will check it out for a minute or 2.
I got a question about the Cowgirls.
Oh, God.
I'm a New York Giants fan, by the way. I'm the Cowgirls.
I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan.
Okay.
Now, recently, Jerry Jones said that if none of his players will kneel for the national anthem, that's not something he has to work with. And I'm sure a bunch of Cowboys probably go to your church. What do you think about that?
I think football is a business. You think it's a sport. I know Jerry Jones personally. Jerry Jones is a business person. I would have to sit down with Jerry and talk to him about the parts of this that you don't see to understand why he made that move, which it was a ricochet move from where he started from. He was with the players. Then he kind of switched in his perspective. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. I can tell you that what's in front of the scenes is never what's really going on. If I were going to investigate it apart from talking to him, I would follow the money, because it's always got something to do with the choices.
Right. Got you.
Very seldom, having been a person who has been in the back room of a lot of things, not this in particular, very seldom is it true that what you are arguing about is what's really going on.
So what we see on the surface.
It's never that. It's never that. I promise you, it's never that. If you are in that arena, you are in that business, either pressure is coming this way or that way, or there's some business component involved in it, or pressure coming that makes that situation play out the way it does. I don't know what that is. I haven't talked to him. I can't speak to that. From a moral perspective, I would prefer that he support the players in their decision, and I think it is far more constitutional to allow me to express myself. You didn't hire me to salute or not salute the flag. Right. You hired me to play the game. And as long as I play the game, I think I'm living up to the contract.
Right.
For us to allow sports to become embargoed by politics, I think is detrimental to both issues, because what we are really dealing with is far more important than touchdowns and passes and games and tickets.
Well, tell the president that, because he's the one tweeting about the NFL his damn self too, and ESPN and Jamel Hill and all that stuff.
I am worried about North Korea. I am worried about job opportunities. I am worried about equal access to health care.
Can I ask a simple question? Is Donald Trump the Antichrist? Bishop, you would have more insight than us.
I don't think so. I don't think so. But I'm worried that over the years, not just with the Trump administration, back to the Obama administration, all the way back to the Clinton administration, there's been a deterioration of the office and the respect for the office. And I think that when we lose respect for the office, we think anybody can do it. And then when we think anybody can do it, we elect anybody to have it. It used to be that it meant something to be the president of the United States. It meant something.
Right.
But the dumbing down of America has been gradual but continual, and we are paying a price for that. We are seeing in all aspects of leadership a reflection of our own values.
It's safe to say you're not a Trump supporter.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
But the greater issue is this: he is now our president. If being a Trump supporter means did I vote for him, I did not. But he is our president. And no matter what you think about him, he's got his hands on the switch. He's got his hands on your grandmama's health care. He's got his hands on your kids' education. And we got to work with who's there. And we got to find a way to make this work, because 4 years is a long time to just be mad.
I guess my final question is, you look around at the climate of the world and you see the natural disasters and everything that's going on. Do you think we're in our last days? Because everybody likes to say, look at the book of Revelations. We're living through it right now.
I'm not sure. It certainly has some similarities. I laughed because not over what you said. I laughed over what I thought. When you said, do you think we're in our last days? I think I'm in mine. So you got to figure yours out for yourself. That's what, I laughed in my own head. But whether we're in our last days collectively or individually.
We're headed to World War III.
That's scary. And that's possible.
Rumors of war?
I don't think you understand. 9/11 was horrible. I mean, it touched every human being that had any sense. But 9/11 is a walk in the park compared to what a nuclear bomb would be in this country. And I'm telling you right now, this country has never seen the devastation of one bomb that got through. Nuclear attack on this country is going to change everything.
Irreparable damage.
Irreparable damage. Is what we're talking about in a flippant way is so serious that I think because of the way we run for presidency, it has turned into a game show contest. Who do you vote for? And we treat it like a football game. I'm on this side and I wear this jersey. Listen, the persons who sit in that office and sit around them in Congress are making decisions from which there will be no return. And I just cannot tell you in this hour how concerned I am. And I've been concerned for years now. Gradually we have turned this thing into entertainment. The meshing of these different machines between politics and television and social media have created a mushrooming of some distorted, mutated thing.
Donald Trump is the executive producer of America right now.
If we don't redignify the office and understand what's at stake, that this is not about ratings for Fox or CNN, but if these bombs start dropping, nobody's going to be able to bury them as fast as they're going to fall. And we don't know whose bodies they're going to be. So this is a serious office. This is a time that we really need to be having relationships with each other. This is a time that we need to have relationships with our elected officials, no matter who they are. Because one wrong move in the underbed rustling that I'm seeing globally, and the world that we know it could not be, the country that we know could not be. That's pretty serious for me. I have grandkids. I kind of like to grow up and live and laugh and see things that are important.
I thought you were about to say, I got grandkids I kind of like.
That's true, too, sometimes. It depends on what I stepped on in the middle of the night when I'm trying to get to the bathroom. That's true, too. But the reality, do you hear what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
And I don't want to leave on a sour note, but I am telling you, the things we fight about, and you're talking about this and that and the other, and the Democrats and Republicans, and Trump's in, Trump's out, and Obama's in, Obama's out, what you think the church ought to do, what we think Black Lives Matter ought to do, all of those are luxury items to debate because we have not been bombed. If we are bombed, you won't care whose political party, who's the pastor, and whatever you think about that.
Those are first world problems. We get bombed, we're going to have third world problems.
That's what I'm trying to say to you. And we're not that far from it. So whether it is eschatology, the theological understanding of the end of the world, or the end of the world as we know it because of evil men, I don't know. But I do know that what is being discussed is something that all of us need to be paying attention to at all ages and stages. Because if you value life at all, if none but your own, we should be paying close attention.
Well, can we
leave with a prayer, man?
We gotta leave with a prayer.
Gotta end with a prayer.
Gotta leave with a prayer, man.
Please.
Gotta leave with a prayer.
Lord, I thank you for the privilege of being in this place, in this moment, with this people at this time. This is a gift from you. For whatever reason, you allowed my voice to be heard through this vehicle. And I pray for every person listening, every person in this room. I pray for our country. I pray for our president. I pray for our nation. I pray for the nations of the world. I don't just want America to do well. I want the world to do well. Because when the world does well, and when there is no injustice, and when there is no poverty and no wickedness and debauchery, then people can walk the streets of Vegas and be safe, and then people can move about their lives and be free. I pray for those that mourn. I pray for all of those kids whose daddies didn't come home. Daddy and mama went away to Vegas and didn't come back. I pray for families who are clutching the scarves of their daughters who will never come back again. I pray for all of the chaos in Puerto Rico and all of the families who are still displaced in Houston and all throughout the lower parts of Texas and all throughout Florida and all of the tragedies all over the world. We need your grace, your love, your peace, your power, and above all, because we are flawed and human and vulnerable and sometimes wicked, we need your mercy. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right.
Bishop T.D. Jakes, y'all.
There you have it. Bishop T.D. Jakes. It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.